According to Saint Albert the Great, the earth will be divided between three states, and angels will descend from heaven. This is what Saint Albert the Great predicted when considering the bloody war beginning and ending. And he was born in around 1200 AD in Bavaria, died 1280. He was a Catholic saint, beatified in Rome 1622, canonized December 1931. He was basically involved with Aristotelian philosophy, but also theology. So what did he predict? Albert the Great, one of the most famous scientists of the Middle Ages, who was not only a philosopher but also a naturalist, theologian, and an occultist. His contribution to various fields of knowledge had a huge impact on the development of science and culture in Europe, and no wonder he was called the Doctor of the Catholic Church. There is an opinion that St. Albert the Great was able to turn mercury into gold and could create from the precious metal a huge greenhouse that lifted mechanisms from the mines of Bavaria. One of the most interesting aspects of Albert Magnus's life is his fascination with magic and the occult and love of divination. He was convinced that magic was more than mere mystical practices and that it could be used to foresee the future. It's curious that unlike the quatrains of famous Nostradamus, this doctor's prophecies are more specific and accurate. Many of them belong, according to researchers, to our time. A versatile person is sometimes said about people who succeed in everything, no matter what they undertake. This characteristic fully applies to St. Albert von Bolsten. He was born into an aristocratic family and possessed a huge fortune, which allowed him to avoid the need to do any work. However, instead of idleness, Albert chose science and began to interpret the philosophical work of Aristotle. He was also interested in physics, alchemy, geography, and the occult. There were persistent rumors that he had the ability to obtain gold from mercury and create golems, that's artificial anthropomorphic creatures. Albert the Great left behind a multi-volume collection of works on various sciences. His books became a textbook for the studios in medieval Europe, but we are more interested in the prophecies of the famous scientist, theologian, and philosopher, which he recorded in a book called Oracles. And his fulfilled predictions, a huge prophetic gift allowed Albert the Great to look into the distant future, 1,000 years from November 15, 1280. Why this particular date? The fact is that the scientist and mystic offered to keep a record of future events from the moment of his death, and this happened on that identical date. What has already come true from what was predicted by St. Albert the Great? For example, the discovery and development of the American continent. He said, among the coming events is the opening of a large shore at a great distance from the Pillars of Hercules. Pillars of Hercules, are, as we know, is Gibraltar. So these lands, he said, will be inhabited by the northern people who will make them a great Christian state, the famous scientist foresaw. Researchers believe that this prophecy refers to the United States and Canada, of course, which has indeed become one of the largest and most powerful states in the world. And despite all modern trends, America is still a very religious country with a strong Christian tradition. He said, she will stand at the edge of victory 3 times in a time span equal to 7 centuries. She will almost succeed in taking over the world 3 times, he said, he foresaw. First, the Habsburgs managed to conquer almost all of Europe under the protectorate of the Holy Roman Empire. Then, at a turn in the 19th and 20th centuries, Germany decided to consolidate European leadership, and already in the middle of the 20th century, the Germans planned to take over the whole world, and the Second World War became the result of these ambitions. What awaits us? So many of the prophecies of St. Albert the Great have already come true. This means that the likelihood of this his remaining predictions will also come true is very high. In his book Oracles, he clearly described the future of mankind and even named specific dates. 7 to 8 centuries will pass after the death of Albert the Great, and people will conquer the moon and Mars. Mankind will not stop at this. There will be flights to other celestial bodies and even to other worlds. The philosopher and theologian himself described the cosmic epic of mankind in this way. As we know, the man stepped on the moon 1969, almost 700 years after the death of the scientist. And if we follow this logic, then the conquest of Mars should be expected in a couple of decades. Indeed, there are programs for the colonization of the red planet, which are already being implemented. A millennium after the death of Albert the Great, angels will descend from heaven as if in the time before the flood. The Christian mystic warned in his Prophecies. After simple calculations, it becomes clear that this event should occur in the distant year 2280. But who will these angels be? Albert the Great, being a deeply religious person and theologian, clearly had in mind divine creatures. However, their description in the book Oracles is more like aliens. The earth will be divided into 3 huge states. Maybe he meant Russia, United States, and China. It will be divided into 3 huge states. They will argue and be at enmity, and only the Almighty will be able to calm them down. The confrontation will end after the large island rises from the depths behind the pillars of Hercules, the prophet said. Is he referring to perhaps Atlantis? According to researchers, this prophecy is about a geopolitical conflict between the superpowers, the United States, Russia, and China, and Albert the Great foresaw this confrontation and was sure that peace is possible only after turning to God and faith. Well, the big island is most likely Atlantis, the appearance of which was expected by the ancient Greeks and Egyptians. And this is on Soul Ask. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.